The knock came before sunrise, sharp, urgent, echoing through the silence of my house. I jolted awake, heart pounding. The clock glowed 5:03 a.m. No one came to your door at that hour unless something was terribly wrong. I slipped into my sweater and moved through the hallway, every shadow stretching too long, too alive. Before you read further, hit subscribe, like, and share this story with someone who loves unraveling the impossible. You'll want them beside you when the truth starts to crack open. When I opened the door, my neighbor stood there. Evan Cross, the quiet man from next door who never spoke more than a polite hello. His face was ashen, his breath uneven as if he'd been running. "Please," he said, voice tight with panic. "Don't go to work today. Stay inside. Promise me." I blinked at him, confused. "Evan, what are you talking about?" He shook his head. "I can't explain. Just trust me. Whatever you do, don't leave." The early sky was still ink blue, streaked faintly with rose. The air bit cold against my skin. Evan's eyes darted across the street as though he feared being seen. "You'll understand by noon," he whispered, then turned and walked away without looking back. The door shut softly behind him, but the dread he left behind lingered, like a storm cloud that hadn't yet broken. I stood frozen at the door long after Evan disappeared down the path. The world outside was still dark, the wind whispering against the trees. My hand trembled on the doorknob, my thoughts racing in circles. Evan Cross, the man who barely nodded when we passed each other, had just begged me not to go to work. Logic told me to brush it off. Maybe he was delusional, maybe he'd snapped. But instinct told me otherwise. The fear in his eyes wasn't madness. It was recognition. I closed the door and leaned against it, listening to the hum of my house. Refrigerator, heating vent, the faint ticking of the kitchen clock. Everything sounded too loud, too alive. I tried to shake it off, but my father's voice drifted from memory. "If something feels wrong, it usually is. He died 3 months ago. Sudden heart failure, they said. But in the days before, he tried to tell me something. It's about our family," he'd whispered. "It's time you knew." He never got the chance. Now, standing there in the dim half-light, I realized that same heaviness I'd felt before his death was back. Something unseen had begun to move again, and it had just knocked on my door. I made tea just to have something to do with my hands. The steam curled in the still air as dawn broke, pale light spilling across the kitchen tiles. I kept glancing toward the window, half expecting to see Evan pacing outside, but his house remained dark and still. Maybe I was overreacting. Maybe he'd had a nightmare. Yet the unease in my chest wouldn't fade. It reminded me too much of the weeks before my father's death. The missed calls. The quiet urgency in his voice. The way he kept saying, "Don't trust what you think you know." Back then I dismissed it as stress. He was a historian, always chasing ghosts through archives and old letters. But the night before he died, he tried to show me something. A file on his computer, a folder labeled Heritage. I never got to see it. Now, as the sun pushed higher, I couldn't shake the sense that his warning and Evan's were somehow connected. I picked up my phone, thumb hovering over my boss's contact. It felt absurd, but something inside me whispered, "Listen." I typed a message, "Can't make it in today, family emergency." Then I sat in silence, waiting for a day that had already started to feel borrowed. Hours crawled by in a haze of waiting. I didn't turn on the TV or check my email. Every sound in the house felt amplified. The low hum of the refrigerator, the faint creak of wood as the wind pressed against the siding. I kept glancing at the clock, counting minutes I couldn't name the reason for. By 11 I felt foolish. Nothing had happened. Evan hadn't returned. Maybe I'd fallen into his paranoia and ruined a perfectly normal workday. I laughed at myself just to break the quiet, but it came out brittle. Then my phone rang. The screen showed unknown number. I hesitated before answering. "Hello." A man's voice came through, measured, professional. "Ms. Hartley? This is Officer Reynolds with the County Police Department. Are you aware of an incident at your workplace this morning?" My stomach dropped. "Incident?" "There was an attack, ma'am. Several injuries. We have reason to believe you were present." "What? No, I wasn't there." Pause. Then his voice grew quieter. "Security footage shows your car entering the building at 8:04 a.m. Your ID was used to access the 3rd floor." My heart stopped. Someone had been there, using my name, my car, my life. And they wanted the world to believe it was me. I gripped the phone tighter, my pulse roaring in my ears. That's impossible, I said. I've been home all morning. Silence stretched between us. Then the officer asked, "Can anyone confirm that?" I looked around my empty living room, the half-drunk cup of tea, the drawn blinds, the clock ticking too loudly. "No," I whispered. "I live alone." His tone changed, turning colder, more official. "Ms. Hartley, at approximately 11:48, a security alarm was triggered on your floor. You were reported missing from the scene. We need you to stay where you are. Officers are en route." Something inside me twisted. "Wait, why would you need to question me? There's evidence found at the site. Items belonging to you." My mind went blank. Items belonging to me. I thought of my father's words again. His insistence that something was wrong with our name, our family, our history. Then it hit me like a blade of ice. Evan knew. "Don't go to work today." My mouth went dry. "Officer," I said carefully, "did you see who got out of the car?" Another pause. "The footage is corrupted. We only see the vehicle. The license matches yours exactly." My hands began to shake. Someone had taken my life and stepped into it. The call ended, but the officer's words echoed through me like a drumbeat. "We're sending units to your address." I stood frozen, the silence in my house turning heavy, watchful. My thoughts twisted back to Evan's pale face that morning, his warning, "Don't go to work. Stay home." If someone had stolen my identity and now the police were coming, were they really coming to protect me? Or to arrest me for something I didn't do? I locked the front door, then the back, then every window, each click of the latch sounding louder than it should have. The neighborhood outside looked ordinary, lawns trimmed, leaves scattering down the street. But it all felt staged, like a photograph trying too hard to look real. I moved from room to room, checking every corner, every reflection. For a moment I swore I saw movement at the edge of the window. A shimmer of light like someone lowering a phone camera. My phone buzzed again. A message this time. Unknown number. "Stay calm. Don't let them in." No name. I backed away from the window, breath shallow. Because whoever had sent that message knew exactly what was about to happen. And they were already close enough to see me. A sharp knock shattered the silence. 3 precise raps. Measured, confident, nothing like the desperate pounding from that morning. My breath caught. I didn't move. Another knock followed, softer this time. Then a voice, calm but urgent. "Mara, it's Evan. Open the door. We need to talk." I stayed perfectly still, my pulse hammering in my throat. How did he know the police would call me? "Evan," I said, keeping my voice low. "What's happening?" Pause. "They're not coming to protect you," he said. "They're coming to take you into federal custody. You were never meant to wake up in your own bed this morning." The air thickened, pressing down on me. "What are you talking about?" "They staged the attack to eliminate everyone in that building. You were supposed to be there, not as a victim but as the scapegoat." My knees weakened. "You're saying they wanted to frame me?" "Yes," he said. "And now they need you alive long enough to confess." I stared at the door, my reflection trembling in the glass. Every instinct screamed to run, but the voice on the other side carried something terrifyingly familiar. Truth. So I turned the lock just once and let the door open. Evan stepped inside the moment the door opened, moving with precision, his eyes scanning every corner as if he expected the walls themselves to listen. He shut the door quietly behind him, then turned to me. "They're already on their way," he said. "You have minutes before they arrive and label this house a crime scene." My voice shook. "Why me? What could I possibly know?" He didn't answer right away. Instead, he crossed to the kitchen window, parted the curtain just enough to look outside. "Your father didn't die of a heart attack," he said finally. The world tilted. "What?" "He was part of an internal investigation, something buried deep. When he found out what they were doing, he refused to cooperate. That's why they silenced him. And that's why they're after you." I stumbled back a step. "You're lying. My father was a historian, not a spy." Evan turned, his expression heavy with something that looked too much like guilt. "That's what you were meant to believe. He asked me to move here. To protect you when this day came." I wanted to laugh, to deny it all. But the tremor in his voice wasn't the sound of conspiracy. It was the sound of confession. For a long moment I just stared at Evan, trying to find the lie in his eyes. "You're telling me my father, my dad, was part of some secret investigation?" He nodded once. He never worked at the university like you thought. That was a cover. He was investigating a classified biogenetic program, one tied to government contracts and private labs. When he realized what it really was, he went dark. I shook my head, but fragments of memory began slipping through the cracks. Strange visitors when I was a child, nights when he'd whisper into the phone in another language, the constant reminders to never give blood samples outside your doctor's office. Evan reached inside his jacket and handed me a small black envelope. He left this for you. My hands trembled as I opened it. Inside was a folded letter in my father's familiar, looping handwriting. Mara, if you're reading this, it means they've found you. You are not in danger because of what you've done but because of who you are. Do not surrender. If they take you, you will vanish. The room spun. My father had known this day would come. And now, standing in the house I'd inherited from him, it had finally arrived. I clutched the letter, my vision blurring as the words sank in. My father hadn't been warning me about a threat outside our family. He'd been warning me about us. Evan's voice broke through my thoughts, low and steady. They're not just framing you, Mara. They're reclaiming you. Reclaiming. The word felt foreign on my tongue. You were never just a civilian, he said. Your identity, your entire life, was constructed. Your father uncovered the truth when you were a child, but he couldn't expose it without putting you at risk. I could barely breathe. What truth? That you were part of a genetic initiative. An experiment they lost control of. The air in the room shifted, thick with disbelief and a strange, nauseating recognition. My father would never. He didn't volunteer you, Evan interrupted gently. You were born into it. Outside, sirens began to wail in the distance, faint, growing louder. Evan's jaw tightened. They're coming, he said. You need to decide right now whether you trust me. I looked at the letter again, at my father's handwriting, the words trembling in my hands. Do not surrender. I met Evan's eyes. Then take me to wherever this truth begins. We barely made it to Evan's SUV before the first black vehicles turned onto my street, engines low and predatory. Their headlights cut through the fog like blades. Get in, he ordered. The moment my door slammed shut, he hit the gas. Tires screamed against the pavement as we sped through the quiet suburb. In the rearview mirror, I caught sight of two men stepping from one of the cars. Dark suits, no badges, radios pressed to their mouths. They're not police, Evan said flatly. The houses blurred past. My pulse thundered as adrenaline overtook fear. For the first time since dawn, I wasn't frozen. I was moving. After 20 minutes of silence, Evan spoke. Your father kept something hidden. A vault only his bloodline could access. It holds everything he uncovered. I stared out the window, the city lights thinning into stretches of forest. And what happens when I open it? He hesitated. You'll understand why they can't let you live. Outside, darkness pressed against the windows. Inside, my father's letter burned in my pocket like a brand. Every question I had ever avoided was racing toward its answer. And for the first time, I wasn't sure I wanted to know. The road narrowed into a winding path, trees leaning close like they were guarding secrets. Evan drove without headlights for a stretch, his face taut with focus. The deeper we went, the quieter the world became. No sirens, no engines, only the low hum of tires over dirt. Where are we going? I asked. To the vault, he said. Your father called it Site Meridian. After a few miles, he reached into his jacket and handed me a tablet. You need to see this first. A file glowed on the screen. Hartley Mara. Subject 7B. Beneath it, lines of data scrolled. DNA sequences, annotations, graphs. I skimmed until my eyes caught one sentence. Subject exhibits full immunity to viral and chemical agents. Potential regenerative response recorded. I looked up, my throat tight. What is this supposed to mean? Evan kept his gaze on the road. It means your blood carries something they failed to reproduce. You were their only success. A living prototype. My stomach lurched. You're saying I'm not normal? His knuckles whitened on the steering wheel. You're more than they ever intended you to be. Outside, the forest gave way to a hill of stone, and a faint metallic door half buried beneath it. Evan parked at the base of the hill and killed the headlights. The night was cold and sharp, the kind of stillness that made every heartbeat sound too loud. The bunker door stood half concealed by vines, a relic of another time. "This is it," he said, stepping out. "Your father built it after he realized the program wouldn't stop." I followed, my shoes crunching against gravel. The air smelled of rust and rain-soaked earth. When Evan pressed his hand against a hidden panel, the door shuddered and opened with a long metallic groan, releasing a gust of air so cold it burned. We stepped inside. The corridor beyond was lined with reinforced steel, the floor etched with strange insignias, circles intersecting lines, the same pattern I'd once seen engraved on my father's pocket watch. As we descended, I felt it again, that strange current beneath my skin like recognition. At the corridor's end stood a vault door marked with an emblem I knew by heart. The Hartley crest, a symbol my father used to say represented heritage. Now I realized it wasn't about bloodline. It was ownership. Evan turned to me. "Only you can open it," he said. And when I placed my hand against the scanner, the vault awakened. A pulse of white light rippled across my palm, then sank into the metal. The vault released a soft chime before unlocking with a slow, grinding turn. Cold air poured out, heavy with dust and the faint scent of paper and oil. Inside, the chamber was circular, walls lined with shelves of matte black boxes, each labeled with coded numbers. In the center stood a single pedestal beneath a cone of pale light. Resting on it was a leather-bound journal, edges frayed, the cover embossed with the same crest that had opened the door. My father's handwriting. Hands trembling, I lifted the journal and opened to a page marked with a folded letter. The ink had faded, but the words hit with impossible clarity. "Mara, my daughter, if you are reading this, it means the truth has reached you. You are not their creation. You are their proof that evolution chose its own path. They did not make you, they merely discovered you. Never let them claim what they did not build." The world tilted around me. My father hadn't just known, he had believed in me. Evan watched in silence as I pressed the page to my chest, my tears falling like an oath I didn't yet understand. I turned the page. A new note, written in a hurried scrawl, filled the next sheet, ink smeared in places as though my father had written it with shaking hands. "At the far end of this room lies a terminal. 2 commands await you. One ensures your safety, the other ensures the truth. If you choose truth, they will never stop hunting you, but the world will finally see what was done. If you choose safety, everything ends quietly and they win." I looked toward the far wall where a console pulsed faintly under a glass panel. 2 glowing buttons, one blue, one red. Evan stepped closer. "He left the decision to you. Not to me. Not to anyone else." My mind raced. The police, if that's who they really were, would find this place soon. If I exposed the truth, I would become the villain they'd already painted me as. If I didn't, my father's death would mean nothing. I whispered. He believed I'd know which choice was right. Evan nodded once, solemn. "Then trust what he trusted." I placed my hand above the red light. It pulsed beneath my palm like a heartbeat. And then I pressed down. A deep hum rolled through the chamber as the terminal came alive. Streams of data cascaded across the glass. Names, accounts, research logs, encrypted files bursting open like veins of light. The walls vibrated softly as if the bunker itself were exhaling secrets long held too tight. Evan leaned over the screen. "It's uploading everything your father archived." He set up automatic transmissions to every major news network and encrypted it under his own verification code. "Once it finishes, there's no taking it back." The hum grew louder. Red warning lights flickered overhead. Somewhere beyond the steel walls, faint alarms began to echo, distant but closing in. I watched the torrent of information spill across the console. Project Helix. Subject 7B. Genetic immunity trials. Thousands of files linking corporations, officials, and research institutions to the same initiative that had taken my father's life. My throat tightened. "He did it," I whispered. "He found a way to make the truth louder than their lies." Evan's eyes lifted to the ceiling as the sirens grew nearer. "And now they'll do anything to silence you before it spreads." But for the first time I wasn't afraid. I'd already become what they feared most, undeniable proof. The alarms reached a fever pitch. Somewhere above us, metal ground against metal. Vehicles, doors, the world closing in. The terminal's screen flashed transmission complete before going black, the hum fading into silence. Evan exhaled. "It's done. The files are out." For a heartbeat there was only stillness, then a distant thud shook the corridor. Dust drifted from the ceiling. They'd found the entrance. "We have to move," he said, gripping my arm. "They won't try to capture us alive now." We sprinted down the side passage, boots striking echoes from the concrete. The corridor split in two, one path sloping upward, the other diving deeper underground. I turned toward the surface, but Evan stopped me. "Up there they'll expect us. Down here we might have a chance." I hesitated. "You mean hide?" He shook his head. "Not hide. Finish what your father started." As we descended, the sound of the storm above us faded into muffled thunder. My pulse slowed, not from calm but from clarity. The truth was out. The world would never look the same again. And whether I survived the next hour didn't matter, because for the first time, the lies that had built my life were burning in the open air. We emerged into the night through a tunnel that opened behind the ridge. The forest stretched before us, black trees against a bruised sky, the horizon flickering with distant lights. Helicopters cut through the clouds, search beams sweeping the ground like restless ghosts. Evan guided me toward the shadows. "They'll come for you first," he said. "You're the proof. The story they can't control." "But it's over," I said, my breath visible in the cold air. "The truth is out." He gave a hollow smile. "The truth doesn't end anything. It begins wars." We reached a clearing. In the valley below, the first waves of news alerts glowed from city screens. My father's files, my name, the evidence of what had been done. The world was already waking to the revelation. For a long moment I watched the lights, the sound of helicopters fading behind us. "My father died believing one thing," I said quietly. "That what's real will always survive the lie." Evan nodded. "Then survive it, Mara. Become what they tried to erase." The wind rose, carrying the scent of rain and change. I looked toward the horizon, toward a future built on the ruins of their silence. And I walked into it without fear.